Hey girlies, just a quick reminder before we dive into today's episode. The information shared on this podcast is intended to be general sports nutrition advice and education related to period recovery for female athletes. This is not specific to any one individual, and it may or may not apply to your situation. If you are looking for personalized guidance, be sure to apply to our RBSN Period Recovery Nutrition Coaching Program. Our 4-month period recovery program is designed to help you sustainably get your period back and keep it. You can apply now to get started in our program, and we'll leave the link for the program below. If you're not quite ready for that one-on-one approach, that's exactly why we created the Period Recovery Guide. It's designed to support the girlies working on period recovery, specifically if you've lost it due to hypothalamic amenorrhea. The full Period Recovery Guide is finally out now, and we will leave all of the information for it in the podcast show notes. This is the Eat More Carbs Podcast. Hello and welcome back. This is the Eat More Carbs Podcast. It's Jenna here with Reilly. We are both dietitians and we talk every Thursday about sports nutrition for the girlies. On this podcast, we talk all about how to help you get your period back. Today, we have a very exciting topic, which I'm super excited to chat about. Before we do that though, we're going to do our high and low, which is just sharing a little bit about our week, the good and the parts that we wish had gone a little bit differently. And then at the very end of the episode, we will do our training update. Reilly and I are both running. I can't even say that we're in our running era anymore because it has extended to a multiple year experience for us, but we're both running. We're preparing for, Reilly's preparing for an upcoming marathon, and I'm just getting back into running again after running a recent marathon. So we'll just give a little bit of an update of what's going on with that. But Reilly, kick us off, high and low. What's going on this week?
I'm so excited to share my high with you. I have been waiting to share it with you. I think I found my gel. I'm going to give a little backstory if you are new to the Eat More Carbs podcast. So gels, super important for inter-run fueling, inter-training fueling. They're just not my thing. I don't know what it is. I think I might have PTSD from college athletics, but gels are not my thing. Like Jenna mentioned, I am training for a marathon coming up in November, and I have been playing around with some intra-run fuel. I usually do gummy bears or candy just because I don't really like gels, but I know with a marathon, I'm going to have to be doing a lot of intra-run fueling, so I've been playing around. This past weekend, I tried the SIS gel, and I think it's my gel.
Ooh, wait, I'm so excited for you. Why do you like it?
So it's an isotonic gel, and I think the biggest thing for me is consistency and mouthfeel with gels. A lot of them feel super heavy to me, and it's really hard for me to get it down. But because it's isotonic, I don't have to take water with it. And if I do take water with it, it almost feels like it's breaking down in my mouth super, super fast because of the composition of it.
I love that. Is it flavored?
So the one I tried was flavored. I didn't love the flavor. It was orange, and I was I feel like I'm taking medicine right now. But that's why I think it's the texture thing, because even though I didn't love the flavor, it was still very manageable for me.
I am pumped. I'm so happy for you. This has been such a journey to find a gel that you've been able to take, and it's such an important thing, like you mentioned, to be able to take fuel while you're running. So finding something that worked for you is that's a huge thing. I'm so happy.
Thanks. Me too. I know that I've just been sharing a lot about it, so I just had to update you on the gel situation.
Oh, wow. I am so pumped for you, but I'm also so mad you didn't tell me right away because I knew you had ordered them. So I've been so curious.
I have a couple other ones that I'm going to try this upcoming weekend, so I can report back on those, but I really like the SIS. My low kind of also has to do with running, so I'm super happy that you kind of kicked it off, because running has become at least my entire personality. I figured out one of my red flags, toxic traits. I will literally only buy Amazon clothes, and then if it has anything to do with running, I'm here's all my money. Because this past weekend I was I don't have any shoes. I don't have any shoes, and then I have 6 pairs of running shoes. I was okay, I see the problem here, Reilly.
Okay, well, on that question then, did you see that our new favorite running brand is dropping their summer collection within the next couple of days?
I know. And that's kind of what got me thinking about it a little bit too, because I was okay, what unnecessary running products do I need to buy while all wearing all my clothes from Costco?
Reilly, that is the complete wrong approach to the situation. What necessary running items do I need? That's how I look at it for sure. I have a pair of flip-flops that aren't running shoes, so...
I'm glad that you agree. I'm not alone.
No, definitely not.
How is your week going, Jenna?
As I've shared on this podcast multiple times before, the people that we get to work with at RBSN are the best people. I'm so thankful for everyone. I had so many client wins this past week. I don't feel like I can pick one of them, but so many amazing finishes in races, qualifications for big meets, big events, and things like that. So shout out to all of my running athletes who have done so amazing these past couple of days. I'm so proud of you. And it's just been so fun fun to cheer people on. Running brings people together in a different way. People sending me videos of them running, like them crossing the finish line. I get immediate updates when someone's qualified or broken like a state record, like things like that are just so fun. And right now there are a lot of like races going on. It's wrapping up like college and high school track season. So many wins from clients is definitely my high, just like getting to celebrate that with people. My low is that weather related or weather adjacent, this time of year, it gets so dry here that I don't feel like I am ever hydrated. I went running last night and I made sure that I hydrated really well beforehand and really well after. And even with drinking a ton of fluid, I was so dehydrated this morning. So I just feel like a shriveled up little raisin today because of that. So I feel like I can't drink enough liquid. So if you are in a warmer climate, just as a hydration reminder, like stay on top of it. Don't fall behind because it's really, really hard to catch up.
We're getting into like that warm time of the year too, like across all of the United States. So it's about to be like hydration station season.
We are so excited for today's episode. On last week's episode, at the very end, we talked about signs and symptoms that your period is coming back. So in today's episode of the Eat More Carbs podcast, we are talking about all of the symptoms that you might be experiencing to notify you that your period is coming back, or ways that you can kind of track symptoms that might be changing and notifying you that whether or not the changes that you have been making are helping you work towards your goal of period recovery. On the Eat More Carbs podcast, we talk a lot about LEA and HA, so low energy availability and hypothalamic amenorrhea. Reilly, can you take a couple seconds and just define those?
Yes. So when we think about LEA or low energy availability in athletes, it's basically this imbalance between the energy that's coming in and the energy that we're consuming through food, and then the energy that is going out through exercise and just functioning as a human. There's this imbalance. So there's too much going out, not enough coming in. It puts our body in this, again, state of low energy availability. To help protect ourselves from this energy unavailability, our body starts to downregulate certain processes. So a lot of these are silent symptoms, things that might not be super apparent in the beginning. We start to see slower cognitive functioning, so it takes us longer to make decisions. We might get a little bit of brain fog. We're going to feel cold all the time. Even if it's, 80 degrees out, we're going to need a sweatshirt to leave the house. We're going to see an increase in illness and injury. We're going to see bone deterioration. We're going to see a decrease in certain hormones, an increase in others. And one of the most common, or I guess like apparent signs of low energy availability is going to be a missing period. It's also known as secondary hypothalamic amenorrhea, or HA. And this lack of a menstrual cycle is just due to downregulation of the reproductive system because of low energy availability.
The body deems the reproductive system as a non-essential system within the body. So anything that the body doesn't view as essential, it's going to shut off to conserve energy for all of the systems it does view as essential. So that's how we get those two kind of playing together with low energy availability and the loss of a period and the reproductive system. With working on period recovery, RBSN created the Period Recovery Guide, which is an interactive guide to help individuals work towards period recovery. One of the big things that we stress within that guide is monitoring your symptoms to show whether or not you are making progress towards your goal of period recovery. So today we're going to be chatting all about what some of those symptoms might look like and all of those encouraging signs that your body is moving in the direction of positive energy availability and that your menstrual cycle is coming back. So Reilly, what are some of those symptoms?
I'm not laughing at us. I'm laughing with us, because you're never going to be as excited to get PMS symptoms as you ever have before, like during this journey. And a lot of these symptoms that you do see and just signs that show that your period is coming back are PMS symptoms, right? So we're going to get that moodiness. We're going to get maybe some cramping, some appetite changes. We're going to get some acne. The amount of times I have jumped up and down because one of our period recovery athletes has gotten some pimples is embarrassing, because they're so confused because they're getting acne and I'm jumping up and down because I'm like, the hormones are here. Like they're here, they're excited, they're ready to go. I think one of the biggest kind of things to start tracking if you are on this period recovery journey is cervical mucus. So we are looking for an increase or presence of cervical mucus and then changes in that during the month. I think that change and that trend in the cervical mucus is extremely important.
Changes in that, correct me if I'm wrong, can notify you whether or not your body is ovulating. So it is a good thing to kind of track and notice whether or not changes are occurring in that. With some of the other symptoms that you mentioned, like cramping or hormonal acne or things like that, is it possible that someone who has never struggled with acne or skin problems in the past could then all of a sudden be experiencing acne even if they had a period before, never had acne, and now they are recovering their period and now they're noticing maybe some skin changes?
Definitely. I think this is really common too, especially with a lot of the girlies. If they haven't had their menstrual cycle for a period of time, we see this a lot with athletes. I'm thinking about a couple of our athletes right now who haven't had their menstrual cycle for 7 to 8 to 9 years. And your body's just going to be in a different place. Your hormones are going to be different. You might have some changes in the beginning that your body's not used to because it's not really had these hormones circulating in this amount in an extended period of time.
I can think of multiple athletes that I have been so excited about who recently just shared that they were experiencing some acne. And so many of them talked about how they were a little bit nervous that maybe it was sweat related because our athletes typically are continuing movement in some capacity. So several of them said, oh my goodness, like I am experiencing some acne that I normally don't, but I'm nervous that maybe it's because I had some sweat or I worked out recently. Is there anything that we can notice from a hormonal acne standpoint that would maybe be different from like sweat induced acne?
Well, my question is like, did you change your workouts? Did something happen recently where like your sweat rate increased? Because if you haven't had your period for years, did you have the acne last year at this point of time? Because again, we don't know, right? The human body is super complex. If it is going to be maybe acne that we haven't had before, like that's pointing towards a positive sign, at least in my opinion.
The other thing that I always like to point out to athletes if they're asking questions about whether or not it could be sweat related or hormonally related is if they've had any changes with their skincare routine. We love a different shampoo. We love a different skincare or skin lotion. So if you have changed any of that, that's something to just note as well. I'm not a dermatologist and neither is Reilly. So neither of us can talk specifics on where your acne is showing up or if it's hormonal, anything like that. But just something to note as far as a sign that your period is coming back might be the presence of some acne. And if you're curious as to whether or not it's related to hormonal changes, asking whether or not it's been something you have experienced in the past with the same level of sweat or exercise activity level, and if you've had any changes in your skincare or hair care routine.
Yes, definitely. We talked quickly right there about a lot of like hormonal signs and symptoms, but there's also a lot of performance signs and symptoms that show that you're at least in a positive energy balance and working in the right direction. So maybe those hormones are not activated yet. Maybe, your body's not ready to start that menstrual cycle, but you're in a positive energy balance and you're getting there. Jenna, do you have any of those quickly at the top of your mind that you're seeing with your athletes right now?
I am thinking of an athlete specifically who started adding in some snacks. She is a collegiate athlete and she messaged me that she finally felt like she was able to focus through her morning classes and she had no idea how she was able to function and pay attention in those classes prior to changing some of the fueling habits that we implemented for her. And that was a big sign for her, was that like there was a mental capacity that she was missing out on before that she wasn't even aware of.
Yes. I feel like almost every single athlete that we work with in our period recovery program, I want to say everyone, but we don't ever give definitives in nutrition, but we'll say almost every single athlete that we work with does experience increased energy inside and out of sport. So in the classroom, in work, even just like on a day-to-day basis. So we're both in our running era right now. You're a running specialist. I know you see this all the time, but those athletes who no longer have to lay on the couch all day after their long run.
This is kind of a tangent, but if you are experiencing the level of exhaustion after a long run where you don't feel like you can do anything else, that's not how we want your after your long run to be. That's not a good sign. Of course, after you run a long, exhausting run, it's normal to feel tired. But if you're unable to function the rest of the day, we need to chat.
Yes. Like as a busy mom, I don't have the capability to lay on the couch all day. Like I have to run around after my daughter and she's running now. She's crazy. But like I don't have that. Like, so I know we're talking about performance in sport, but it's also just talking about like quality of life as well, right? Like I don't want to miss out on the things that she's doing. I also have responsibilities as a parent. And I think a lot of the time when we talk about athletes, it's like, yes, this is about athletic performance, but this is also about like your health and your well-being. And we also know when we look at athletes, like how you're doing outside of sport affects your performance in the sport as well.
What signs or what symptoms have you noticed maybe performance related from your athletes about period coming back?
Yeah, I have actually seen a lot better recovery in athletes. Within our private client portal, we have the opportunity for athletes to sync up some of their wearables. And with a lot of the athletes who do that, we do see like a drop in like resting heart rate. We do see a lot more like recovery from kind of that perspective when they start to get into this positive energy balance. So they're having better sleep, they're having better recovery, their body is primed and like ready to go in a much better way to get get through some of these hard training blocks because they've increased their energy availability.
Speaking of priming the body and being ready for the next training block, that's why we're always talking about how not having a period really can impact performance. And that being a sign that we can improve your energy availability to recover better so that way you can perform better or take advantage of your training blocks more heavily. So that way on race day, on competition day, you can tap into all of the training that you've done in order to perform better on the day where it means the most.
For an athlete who's listening right now who doesn't have her period and she's like, you know what, I do have energy, I am performing well, what would you say to somebody like that?
I think it's really a valid thing to think that you have energy or feel like you have energy, especially if you've been dealing with it for such a long time. But if you have some of these other symptoms that Reilly mentioned at the beginning of this episode, like not having a period, if you're feeling cold all the time, if you feel like you have brain fog and things like that, then maybe there is an opportunity to increase your energy level that you don't even know exists. It's really hard for me to say your performance will feel better, your energy will feel better when you don't know what that is. If you don't know what proper energy feels like, of course you're going to feel like the energy that you have right now is enough because it's what you've been surviving off of for such a long time. So if you are curious about whether or not that would change, listen to some of our other episodes about small steps that you can take in order to get your period back and start implementing a few of those recommendations to see how that makes you feel. Because one of the first signs I feel like we often hear from athletes is that they felt like they had more energy.
Again, almost every single one of our athletes have said that. I also want to remind you too that everybody has their own ceiling when it comes to athletic performance. And if you're feeling good right now, imagine how much better you would feel if we could increase your energy and your performance. I guess the sky's the limit, right? Like if we can make you a better athlete, like why would we want to not take advantage of that?
Especially when we have pretty big athletic goals.
Yes, exactly. And almost all of our girlies in our period recovery program do, right? We want to help them fuel properly and help their performance and get their period back. It all goes kind of together.
Yes, 100%. We talk a lot about tracking these signs and these symptoms that your period is coming back, some of these encouraging symptoms returning in the period recovery guide, which is an interactive guide that athletes can use to kind of monitor their progress along the period recovery journey. For all of you listening to the Eat More Carbs podcast, thank you for supporting the podcast. To say thanks, we have a special offer for you.
As an Eat More Carbs listener, we want to give you 10% off of the period recovery guide. If you are interested in getting started on your period recovery journey, or maybe you're just like overwhelmed, you don't know where to start, and you want a self-paced resource, the period recovery guide is your go-to. You can use the code EMC10 at checkout to get 10% off the guide.
We are going to leave all of the information for the period recovery guide in the podcast show notes. We will also leave the link to apply to our one-on-one period recovery program. Thank you so much for listening to this episode about signs and symptoms that your period is coming back. We're going to do our training update, so sharing just a little bit about the training that we're currently doing. Reilly is running the New York City Marathon this November, but she is running a half marathon in just a few weeks, which is crazy. And then I just ran a marathon, so my training is a little bit different in that I'm not training for a specific event right now, just providing a little bit of a training update with where we're at with our running. So Reilly, what's going on with you this week?
This is my peak week actually in mileage. So that's pretty crazy because I can't believe that I only have like 2.5 weeks until my half. I'm just doing like a local half marathon. I'm using this half marathon to get a time that I can kind of plug in and use for my New York City Marathon training, which is happening at the beginning of July, which is a week from next week, which I don't know how I feel about it. Like I'm super excited, but like it's getting real now.
I'm so excited for you. I think you're going to have so much fun. What's peak mileage for you?
This week it's 32 miles. That's kind of what I've been focusing on. I probably won't hit that just because I had some like pretty high load stuff I did last week, and I opted for like a bike workout over a recovery run just because it was raining and I didn't need to force myself. A big thing, a big motto that I have is like, do not get hurt, do not get hurt, do not get hurt. So I'm taking it a little bit cautious.
I love that. I think a big thing that I talk a lot of the times with like clients or just people in general is that like progress is not perfection, and adjusting and being open to adjusting your training plan I think is so important to help keep you healthy. So I love that, yes, you do have a training plan that you're following. Shout out to Rana. I know that that's something you're really enjoying, but you're also remaining flexible with things to make sure that like the biggest thing is that you're healthy on race day.
Exactly. And I think there's so many parallels with like training for a race, training for a marathon, and getting your period back, right? Because there's sometimes these goals that we had, and we've talked about this specifically on the episode that you did, Jenna, where you shared about your marathon experience, but sometimes you just have to be flexible, and you know, your plan or your training or your recovery approach is just going to need a little bit of tweaking. You have to listen to your body, and that's totally okay.
Yeah. Like if we look at your goal as how many miles you're running for peak week. What happens if we adjust that? Just like if your goal for to get your period back was 3 months, what happens if we adjust that to 4?
And in the grand scheme of things, me skipping like a singular 5-mile recovery run isn't going to do anything. Like it's not going to negatively affect me. What would affect me more is if I tried to push it, got hurt, and then I can't train for 3 weeks.
Yes. I'm glad that you're adjusting and I'm glad that you're staying healthy.
I just had to have that like on the record. So when I, message you next week freaking out about my half marathon, because it seems to go like week by week, you can replay this and tell me that I'm okay.
I'm just going to put it on a t-shirt for you.
You're going to be okay. No, I just think it's so interesting because again, kind of pulling parallels to period recovery. I feel like when you're training for something, it goes like week by week. Like last week, I wasn't having the best like mental state about it, but this week I'm feeling good. The ups and downs.
Oh my gosh, yes.
What is training looking like for you right now?
Like I said at the beginning of this episode, I'm not training for anything specific, which is kind of what I typically do. I live in Arizona. I'm sure I've said that a million times. So a broken record. I live in Arizona and it's so hot here during the summer that training longer runs is really difficult because I'm not a treadmill person. I just have such a hard time. If I'm running, I want to be outside. I have a very small window of time in which I can run, which is not too hot. And especially as we kind of come into the peak of summer where we're going to be in the triple digits for days and days on end, I just have to be really cautious about that. So when I am running, it's a lot shorter of a runs. I'm trying to work a little bit more on speed work versus on distance type of things, and also trying to run more hills, which you have to be super strategic about that here because it's mostly flat unless I'm going to do a trail run, which I'm definitely not going to do in the dark because that's just a recipe for disaster with my clumsiness for sure. So I have been seeking out neighborhoods which have more hills so that way I can train more of a diverse like incline, because that has been something that has negatively impacted my performance because it's just been harder to find, and I'm not going to seek out hills typically. So that's what I'm doing right now, is like looking for a harder course to run, even if that means running laps.
I was going to ask like how you've been finding hills because it's just so flat in Phoenix.
Yeah, it is. There's a couple like neighborhoods that have like almost like a foothill type of feel to them because they're kind of approaching I don't want to call them mountains. Being from Colorado, I don't feel like I can call them mountains, but they call them mountains here. So I've just been going to those neighborhoods, finding a route that's maybe like 1 to 2 miles, and then I'll loop it because there is some type of an elevation change.
I did hills this morning. It's just a beast.
And these hills were not like Winston-Salem, North Carolina hills. These were like baby hills in comparison.
It's just actually really funny because like I'm trying to find paths that don't have hills. I'm like very sick of hills. I'm like, I am tired of this elevation.
I would say you should come to Arizona and just have a week of training here, but it's just so hot. You probably wouldn't want to do that either. So I hear that. You just have to like be strategic about your running, and like you have to plan way more than I think you do maybe if you have like a very flat or a very hilly area that you live in.
There's just so many different things to like take into consideration. Like again, I've said it like 3 times in the last 5 minutes, like just like period recovery. I'm like, there's so many things. That's all I can think about. I feel like sometimes when I'm training, I'm like, there's so many parallels here to getting your period back.
That's so true though. It's so true. So I love that we have this like parallel that we're going through with training for your first marathon and talking about period recovery with all of you. Thank you so much for listening to Reilly and I chat every week about sports nutrition, getting your period back, and also listening to us kind of yap about what's going on in our life. We so appreciate you. It would mean so much to Reilly and I if you subscribed, liked, and reviewed the podcast. That does wonders for our small business at RBSN. Thank you so much for listening. And as always, make sure to eat more carbs.